You gotta be kidding me! You gotta be kidding me! That's a Twofer! Twofer, baby! Oh! Again! That's a Twofer! That's a Twofer! Twofer, baby! Oh my god!
Hello, and welcome to It's a Twofer, TUFF's only double bill review show. My name's Tom.
My name is Kimber.
Tonight we have a more eclectic episode for you. We're going to be focusing on Frank and Hedwig and the Angry Inch.
Yeah, this is kind of one of my favorites with Hedwig, and I know that you really have a soft spot for Frank. So.
Yeah, because that's something like we kind of discovered together.
Yeah.
So.
Upon talking about these movies a lot and appreciating them, we realized that they're quite similar in a lot of ways, and certainly a good pairing for Twofer.
All right, well, maybe we should tell the audience a little bit more about these movies before we get started. And play! 2014's Frank was directed by Lenny Abrahamson and stars Michael Fassbender, Domhnall Gleeson, as well as Maggie Gyllenhaal. Gleeson plays John, a struggling musician who can't find his voice. Due to a bittersweet run-in with a band on a beach, John finds himself a muse in the form of Fassbender's Frank. An amazing tour of obscurity, melody, and expression, all while being based on true events. This movie will push your mind to its furthest corners.
Hedwig and the Angry Inch is a 2001 film adapted from the stage musical written by John Cameron Mitchell and Stephen Trask of the same name. The movie was written, adapted, and directed by Mitchell, who also stars as the titular character, a transgender singer in a punk rock band. Hedwig tells us the story of her complicated transition and her famous ex who stole her music and left her in the dust. With a unique aesthetic, tons of glitter, and some of the catchiest songs you're likely to hear, Hedwig sucks you in and makes you a part of her world while she attempts to find her other half.
Well, now that you know more, we're going to get into how these movies complement each other. And first off, music. Frank's is more the music writing process, whereas Hedwig is pretty much just, it's a musical, so it's more geared. Like, Frank is not a musical, but has music.
It's about a band.
So definitely the whole having the band around, always constantly hearing the instruments tune up, that's something that's kind of relative in both episodes.
I must say that the music is fantastic in both of these movies. I would listen to both of these soundtracks and on many occasions listen to them. I'm partial to the Hedwig soundtrack. I think all the songs that Stephen Trask did are amazing and super catchy, and you want to listen to them again because they just reel you in. And I have a hard time even choosing a favorite on that soundtrack because they're all so different and they're all so special.
Well, Frank, again, it's more about the album because they have like the produced versions of the songs, but when you're watching the movie, you're seeing like a live rendition of one thing, but John's new to the band, so it's not perfect. Then you have some of the stuff that they're writing because they try to record an album in this movie, Frank. And so we don't have like the perfect versions in the movie, whereas Hedwig is very polished. So.
Yeah, it's a very different style with them too, because Frank, it's very like experimental, like indie music, and she's got like a theremin and it has this weird like spacey warbling type feel. And like you said, Hedwig is she's a little more punk rock and a little more like tough, edgy for sure, and again, polished and like a musical. So I love them. Listen to both soundtracks, amazing.
So identity versus alter ego. So this was written by, forgive me for not knowing the last name, but another man named John. The main character is based off the writer. John was in the same band as Frank Sidebottoms, who is famous in the UK. He had shows up until like the 2000s.
Morgan knows who he is. He's Nolan. Not too familiar with his work, but he's definitely heard the name.
Yeah, he was like and Frank wears a giant head, and it's okay. He has a certificate for that.
Like a paper mache huge head.
They use it in the movie is great. Not only technically, because with a giant head, how are you going to sing? He has a spot to plug in a microphone in his head, so And then
he never takes it off, so you get some really funny bits where like he is in the shower and John sees the head and he goes to like take a peek at him in the shower to see what his appearance is underneath the head, and he's wearing, I believe it's another head with a
plastic bag over
covering
it. Yeah. He's always having to explain because John's like, it's very unnerving, your head, it makes me uneasy because he doesn't have any expression. And he goes, oh, I'll just tell you what my expressions are. So he's like, genuine smile. Like he'll tell you how he's feeling or what his face is portraying. So that they make great use of the head. So I know Billy, he needs to get over it.
I'd love to make you one day for Halloween or something.
I will wear it.
And I think
and I'll never stop.
Another thing that we need to mention is when we watched this movie the first time, we did not know that it was Michael Fassbender underneath the head. And spoiler alert, get off towards the end of the movie, and when he did, I was like, holy crap, that's Michael Fassbender.
Well, it's not even because I don't want to spoil it for you. He doesn't take it off by choice. So when we finally see him, we're not even sure if it's him or not, and then we're like, oh, it is. Like it's very interesting because I just thought,
yeah, and he did really well with the singing and stuff. Like I never would have thought it was Michael Fassbender. That blew me away. He did an excellent job.
But so apparently the Frank Sidebottom character, the man who played Frank Sidebottom, seemed to have some identity issues with being himself and Frank Sidebottom because Frank Sidebottom was more famous. Like he was famous for being him, you know what I mean? But he was more notoriable and stuff like that. And if you look into the movie Frank, he's always like, oh, you get it, I should be famous, people should know who I am.
Yeah.
Like, and we get that a lot. But Hedwig has her own identity issues, obviously.
It's a complicated backstory with Hedwig because we do go back in time and see Hedwig as a young boy and up with this guy, and he offers to get her the hell out of there because she's in Germany at a time that it's not great to be in Germany.
She's on the wrong side of the wall.
Yeah. And he kind of coerces her to get this sex change operation so that she can leave with him and they can get married. And it goes wrong. Like it's not a good sex change operation, hence Angry Inch being the name of the band, because that is what she's left with.
A 1-inch mound of flesh.
Yeah, there's some pretty badass songs about it. I can't tell you enough how great it is. But yeah, so it definitely has a lot to do with both of these people kind of diving into these alter egos that they've created for themselves. So Frank has had a trauma that has led to him wearing the head. So it's these people going through kind of horrible situations and turning themselves into these big, larger-than-life characters, so safe in who they are and happy with who they are.
Yeah, for sure. They do a good job of explaining why and how Frank started wearing the head. I'll leave that for you to watch because the ending is really good in both these movies, and we'll probably wrap up the complimentary section with that.
Yeah, one more quick thing before we leave the identity thing. In Hedwig, she's not the only one with identity issues because she also has Van Yitzhak, who is, I'm not sure, trans or
cross-dressing right?
For sure, but it is a female actress dressed as a man, and they go into issues with that throughout the story as well. I think Hedwig has a lot of problems with being worried that she's going to be outshined by this person and oppressing them a little bit.
Because she's obviously very talented, or he's obviously very talented.
Yeah, Hedwig kind of picks up strays, is what it seems like. She finds these people who are in situations, and like you'll see her hold their passports as hostage, as like a threat in this movie. She kind of likes to have these people under her thumb. I think a lot of it has to do with possible like abandonment issues.
And if she can't leave, I just want anyone else to leave.
But yeah, identity is a huge theme in both of these movies.
Something else that's in both of these movies is narration. Hedwig, the narration is more so while she's performing and she's talking to the audience, and then that will cue like a flashback.
Yeah.
And that she's like telling everyone like what happened with Tommy Gnosis, which we'll get into. But John also narrates the film through his tweets, because the whole time he's tweeting about his own process,
accompanied with voiceover.
Yes,
the tweets.
And Domhnall Gleeson is hilarious in this movie. He's very funny, and I think it's one of the few movies I've actually seen him in a comedy role.
Yeah, usually
I know him from
dramatic,
Black Mirror.
yeah.
I know him from Star Wars, obviously.
He's in Ex Machina, I believe. Yeah.
We're gonna Twofer that so we can see something new.
But the Hedwig narration is seriously important too, because when you go to the live show of Hedwig, it's really on one set, and it's almost like a one-man show with background, because not only does the lead who plays Hedwig, they also do the Tommynosis part, because they're basically just telling you the story, and then the band is there mostly to help perform the songs.
And in the movie, it's funny too, because Tommynosis, when he sings, is still Cameron Mitchell's voice.
Is it?
Yes, he does
I
both
had no
parts.
idea.
That's why it's so distracting. He does both parts.
That's weird. I didn't even know that.
So the whole two sides, we'll get it. If you know the movie,
it's Michael Pitt.
It is Michael Pitt. It's
fake Leo.
Yeah, fake Leonardo DiCaprio. But that kind of gives solace to the whole Origins of Love thing, where it's one person cut in half, same voice. I know they kind of dispel that at the end, and we'll get more into it. But
I think this is a good segue to almost even talk about it's so huge of a theme that Tommy is stealing the voice, the essence of Hedwig, because now he's a huge star with the songs that Hedwig taught him, and he's claiming that he wrote them, and he's this huge, massive pop star, following him on tour and playing crappy venues next to the huge venues that Tommy is playing, and telling people the story of how these are her songs. He even, we see later on his album, he screws up the lyrics because he didn't remember it properly. Yeah, instead of Osiris, he says the Cyrus. And they're actually having kind of a nice moment getting along until that happens, and it just reminds her of everything this dude has done. And
because up to that point, when they're hanging out listening to the album, she's like, okay, at least it's a good representation. It's a song. It's like, it's mine. It's getting out there. But now it's like bastardized.
Well, I think he was even agreeing to credit her on the album, and that just ruined the moment, you know. And the same goes for Frank and John.
Well, yeah, because John is, from the beginning, we see him trying to write songs, and he's just not good.
He's okay.
He sings the same tune for everything. Like, that's
uninspired, I think, is the word.
And so he's trying to find his inspiration throughout this whole thing, but his brings down the band.
Yeah.
And to which that he gets them an opportunity, but in the end he kind of screws it up for everyone.
Yeah. But even the other guy in the band with him, whose name escapes me at the moment, they have a nice scene where they talk about how they want to be Frank. They wish they could be like Frank because he's so interesting and creative and write little songs like he does with the tuft of carpet on the spot. It's beautiful, and they're amazed. And the other dude in the band even went on to play one of his originals, and I thought that was quite beautiful, but he was like, no, it's garbage, after hearing what Frank writes, you know.
They both have these within the band kind of affecting them.
Inspiration leeches
is what I wrote. Yeah. These movies are both kind of time capsules too, because I brought up the opportunity. They get to play South by Southwest very today, and all the clothing is today, and
the music's very hipstery.
Yeah.
Their band's name is unpronounceable.
Sophenberg. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't even try it. You can yourself and let us know.
But Hedwig, even though it was from 01, has a little older feel to it. You feel a little bit more of the 90s and 80s inspiring.
Yeah. Especially because, Sizzler is name dropped, and I can't think of the last time I've seen a Sizzler ad.
Yeah. And
It
the
could just be regional.
clothes, like big anarchy symbols and stuff,
Yeah,
spray painted.
very punk rock. I know that resurgence in the
Yeah.
80s and the 90s.
And don't get me wrong, because it looks great even today. They have done little to no changes to the styling when they do the Broadway performances of Hedwig, and it still looks awesome.
But even the talent they have on stage in the musical, we just names real quick. There was Tay Diggs,
Darren Criss. We
Mike-
saw
yeah, Michael C. Hall,
we saw Michael C. Hall
and his
perform.
dog.
Yeah, he's got great legs.
and Neil Patrick Harris.
Of course, yeah, he did a long stretch
Mhm.
as Hedwig.
His version, because they released recordings with whoever's singing.
Yeah. That's available. You can
Yeah.
get that on YouTube.
His is the most famous or most successful, I think.
Failed to mention that John Cameron Mitchell actually did come and reprise the role.
And did originally on.
I was heartbroken because they didn't announce that until after we already went, and I'm like, oh, I would have loved to go because everyone is great, and I would have loved to see NPH or any of these people, honestly, but John Cameron Mitchell just really embodies this character that he created, and he's my favorite Hedwig forever.
Both of these movies also are very chaotic, like down quickly, but that's part of the fun. Both of these movies are fun to watch. So who doesn't enjoy a little chaos now and then?
Yeah, particularly with Clara and the bands. Like we wrote down bands of immigrants is what we wanted to bring up. Very eclectic people in their bands, and there's diverse languages going on, and it's like an ongoing bit in Frank in particular that there's these two people who I think they're French.
Yeah, you think they only speak French.
But yeah, they're just like saying these terrible things about John, and we can of course see the subtitles, but he's just trying.
He's repeating it back to them because he just think it's like, oh, hello, and he's like, you're sneaky, like. It's funny because he repeats it back to them, and they're like, ooh, and they walk out of the room.
But they just have like this mismatch of like misfit people all shoved together, working together in these bands and all these different personality types, and it is very tumultuous in both films.
Well, even because when the movie starts, we're in Ireland, and the band is coming from America, and they picked up
England and then to Ireland,
oh yeah, because they go to Ireland later. So they go to England, and then we have the opposite, Hedwig going from Europe to America. I mean, they end back up in America, but
yeah, for sure.
They also end back up in Europe again. So
and there's also some similarities with the relationships with the main characters. John and Clara have a really intense and strange heads love-hate type thing going on.
But the relationship with Clara and Frank is more like, you don't know because the whole time you're like, okay, so who's taking advantage of who? Because like John, you're like, okay, John just wants to be there because he sees this as an opportunity. But Clara seems like because she's not in control at certain aspects. So like the way they depict her and Frank together as well is very not butting heads, maybe creatively a little bit.
Yeah.
But
I think she's taking care of him though a little bit too. John and Clara definitely remind me more of Hedwig and Yitzhak because there is a lot of problems there. Again, and control is certainly an issue with that pair as well. Again, like I said, with the passports and her kind of like oppressing Yitzhak because she wants to shine and not have anybody steal her thunder. So definitely some rough relationship stuff going on.
In the end, both of these movies are very similar in the ways that, both of their true selves are revealed.
Mm-hmm. Stripped down, no mask, no wig for Hedwig. The makeup it's not gone, but it's certainly different.
Off, yeah.
And you get to see Yitzhak have a moment finding, herself.
There's a
in
lot
the end there. The gender stuff is complicated with that movie. Do bear with us. But yeah, it is a very like about people finding themselves, and Hedwig, a huge theme is like finding your other half, and spoiler alert, she kind of realizes that she's her other half.
Like because there's a song called Origin of Love, and it's It's one of the greatest songs, and it's very much like there's one person, then people came up, cut him in half, and they distributed him across the world. And like Dragon Balls, you got to find him. But in the end, she finds out that he is more important. It's very odd because she is also like stripped out of the gender as well.
Yeah.
Michael C. Hall looked good shirtless too.
Yeah. And covered in glitter.
He was. And
I
there's also
also-
a sense of sorry.
I also think that John kind of found what he was looking for too. Like, I think he was inspired by the way that they reacted when they were brought together again, and seeing that they didn't really quite work. The band didn't quite work without Frank, and Frank really kind of needs the band as well. And I think that was inspiring to John.
Well, keep in mind too, this is the first time John's seen out him.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't see Frank's band beforehand as like, oh, I want to join that band. He was
just
like,
asked,
they
"Can
put
you
him
play
on
these
stage.
3 notes?"
Yeah. So for him to actually see that they work without him, because that may have not even occurred to him before. He may have thought he was important because he was there, but obviously. But because that scene, as well as the ending scene, the other one is a huge tone of forgiveness, which you brought up.
Acceptance, camaraderie, and love. They both have very beautiful endings.
Like it seems like John kind of gets a pass at the end because he kind of exiles himself.
Yeah, which we will talk
Removes
about
the
more
situation.
in a moment.
Yeah, well, sorry, I'm jumping ahead. And at the same time, when Hedwig is forgiving Tommy,
Mm-hmm. It's everyone's getting like peace, some sort of peace within themselves.
Yeah, for sure. So, contrasting points, because we don't want to watch the same movie twice. The music.
Mm-hmm.
As we said before, very different kinds of music. We don't need to go more into it. Another interesting contrasting point is that the Hedwig is from the point of view of the musician Hedwig, while Frank is from the point of view of John.
So it's like from the outside
looking in.
Yeah.
So we know more about Hedwig because she's the one narrating. We get to see her flashbacks. Really, we only get to see John's struggle his own internal struggle, really, while he's with this band of misfits that is Frank's band. It's very hard when you don't know the band name.
They're almost kind of like polar opposites, because on one hand you have Hedwig, who is the true artist and who is the inspired one, and she's telling the story of this person who is a fraud and who has stolen everything from her. And then on the other hand, you get kind of like what Tommy's story could have been, where you're getting the story of this genius artist from the voice of the person who wants to steal everything that's amazing about them.
Like, I could see Tommy Gnosis if it was today. I could see Tom tweeting goes, "Oh, I have this great idea for a song," and it's the same chords that he just played over at Hedwig's. You know what I mean? Like, I could see that perfectly. So that's interesting. Both have one is a choice and the other one's kind of forced upon her. As far as we were talking about Hedwig earlier, how she was kind of forced to get the operation or to go to the States and to live the life she wanted to live. Whereas Frank may have made the choice to put the head on, but it was never forced upon him. Like he decided that I'm gonna get my dad. But
without getting too spoilery, we do find out that it was his choice to wear the head, and that when he decided to not take it off, his parents kind of enabled him to allow him to keep wearing it, and they kind of blame themselves for enabling him to do this, and it eventually leading to being kind of unhealthy for him to always have the head on.
Whereas Hedwig, who also had a weird relationship with her mother, and we get to see more of their relationship than we get to see of Frank's relationship with his parents. He gave her consent and stuff, but I think if she knew that it was going to get botched and what it would entail, she would never let it happen.
It was a supportive move, for sure, on the part of Hedwig's mom. Like, I think she even gave her, I think the mother was named Hedwig, and she assumed identity when she moved.
Oh yeah, right, took her. That's right.
But it's just very different situation when you have somebody who's dealing with, was talked into getting this sex change operation, and it went horrible, and here's what I have now. Who am I going to be? What do I do now? And really, she picks up the pieces and the situation better than I feel like most people would. And it's beautiful. I love the movie.
Yeah, for sure. And to wrap it up, the ending. Now, please go watch the movie. Despite if we've spoiled anything for you, these movies are about the experience. It's not about the plot. So both of these endings, though, while they are very similar, also with the fact that Hedwig and John both kind of depart. Hedwig leaves gets up with the band playing. You know what I mean? And walks out.
Yeah.
Lift up your hand.
That side, it's all about acceptance.
Yes.
And like, it's, again, we're getting into major spoiler territory, but that's a beautiful scene because Hedwig like takes off to put it on Yitzhak, and he kind of backs away instinctively because, not allowed to have the wig. And Hedwig is like, no, like, take this. It's really powerful to see Yitzhak get to have that moment where she feels pretty,
It's very much like a king surrendering his crown.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Or a queen. It's...
Because I do have a feeling that Hedwig is like, do not touch my stuff, don't touch my wigs, like, I will beat an ass. And for Hedwig to be like, no, like, it's your time, I'm giving this gift to you.
And not only the wig, the stage.
Everything,
she gives her the stage, which is even more important than the wig. She can still sing without the wig. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so...
approval, I think, is the most important. Like, like, I'm okay with this, like, please do this. I know you want to,
For sure. And John, he, like we said before, he kind of distances himself from the band now that he sees that they work so well together. This kind of reminded me of the movie Rockstar with Mark Wahlberg, except, like, it didn't have that cheesy ending where, like, we get to see him at a bar at the end and he's doing his own little solo thing and he's good. No, we don't know what happens to John.
Because it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I think that's what's great about it is you're realizing, and John's realizing, that it's not about him. You know, like, that they probably might have been better off than him.
It's almost a brilliant move to have the main character not belong in the story at all. And that's half the reason why it's so fun, because, like, they get into these predicaments where, like, he is not he is not melding well, and the safe words from another thing, but still, it's
well, bad stuff does happen. Like, they lose at least one person
along the way,
and
yeah.
I mean,
Frank,
people get stabbed, like all kinds
Chinchilla!
of stuff.
But yeah, we love both of these movies, and this one we didn't send out. The last couple episodes you watched, we did a tweet segment. We're trying to cut down the episodes so we don't torture you.
Yeah, we're still experimenting.
So now on Twitter using the hashtag Twofer, TUFF or tweet at us at OddShapePanel.
And Kimberbatch _OSP. We do have one more little segment.
What's that?
Tonight. We usually do a director swap.
Oh, that's right, we do.
And we talk about what these movies might be like if the directors switched movies. But because both of these are so musical of films, I think we're going to do it a little different tonight and talk about which song we would switch into the other movie.
We're going to have each band cover another band's song.
Where are you at with this?
Okay, so I would have Hedwig's band play I Love You All from Frank, and I would have Frank's band play Origin of Love, probably. Or Midnight Radio. It's really hard to pick.
Yeah.
What about
you? The Angry Inch play the Lone Standing Tough song. I just could see that fitting in. And for my own pleasure, because I would love to watch it, particularly when he's in the dress and makeup get up, I would love to see Frank perform Sugar Daddy.
I would also like to see them play Angry Inch, the title song.
Yeah.
It's really hard when you go for the Hedwig ones because while I like all the Frank songs, a lot of them are really weird. So if you don't have that weird vibe, which, I mean, Hedwig has that weird vibe, but if you don't have like the theremin and stuff like that, it doesn't sound like it's going to translate well. Whereas Hedwig, like every song, it feels like a hit.
Yeah, but it's also strange because they're so autobiographical to Hedwig's story, so it's weird, like, to have
Sure.
Frank, like, singing.
Especially if he was going to be singing. Well, Sugar Daddy, I guess you could do more, but to do like Angry Inch, that's a very personal
Yeah.
song. You're right.
But it is, those songs are great to be covered. There's actually an awesome cover album of, like, 90s alt-rock bands
Yeah.
doing all the Hedwig songs.
Wig
it's
in a
called
Box,
Wig in a
right.
Box,
Yeah.
and
Sorry.
there are some excellent ones. The Cyndi Lauper Midnight Radio is... Check that out if you like that movie.
I haven't found a typo negative version of Angry
Yeah,
Inch.
you
I was
did.
like, all right.
There's like a Slater Kinney cover on that album and stuff. Like, there's a lot of cool stuff on. But I think we are getting close to wrapping it up here today.
Yeah, that's it for us. Next week we're going to be doing, or not next week. We do these every 2 weeks.
Bronson
Oh, yeah.
and A Clockwork Orange. This is the Kimber special here. Two of my favorites.
Clockwork Bronson.
I'm excited.
That the show just exists so I can slam titles
It's
together.
ultra violent, so that's for sure.
She's not wrong. Thank you so much for joining us. Please, while you're here on the TUFF channel, because that's where you're watching us, I think, be sure to check out all the other great shows. BFF does some live broadcasts of movies they watch that get brought up during Fan Friction.
We love those
Another
guys.
live broadcast, which last Sunday, now that you're watching this on a Thursday, presuming you're watching it the day it uploads. I don't know how I did, obviously.
Because it's in the future.
So I'm not going to talk smack so I don't look like an idiot. Go down. No, it's going to be great. I'm going to be fighting Lon and our good friend Nolan Dean. So
I know that guy.
be sure to check that out when it's available, which is already because this is in the future. Check out DVD Bunker. He just did a bracket of all the best. He like figured out what is the best Marvel Universe movie
Mm-hmm.
by doing it bracket form.
Yeah.
So if you got an hour to kill and you love the Marvel movies, definitely check that out. It's hosted by two great guys, Brian and
Matt.
whenever
The Drunksman.
Drunksman, and Hercules is Brian's. So if you're looking for, he always is talking smack about something. But that's it. Thank you so much. Did I forget any other shows? No, right? We have our old Odd
For
Shape
the-
panel highlights here also, but
Yeah, check us out on Odd Shape channel because the show is on TUFF. Definitely head over to the mothership. Follow us there.
beam me up, Scotty.
Beep, bop, boop.
Enter visual effect of teleportation now.
Now.
We don't have it. Bye.
You gotta be kidding me! You gotta be kidding me! That's a Kimber!